Speaking of new employees, I'd like to invite all new employees to please stand. Let's give them, new members of the Beaver family, a warm welcome. Woo! Welcome, welcome. You can now say you are a Beaver. At this time, I'd like to invite Jesus Valle, Director of ARC's Native American Resource Center, to make a presentation that includes the ARC Indigenous Land Statement. Jesus?
Good morning, friends and colleagues. Enchimelios chaniavu, intom kechemelea. Amanete votem yavinewi. I am Professor Jesus Valle, and I teach in the ARC English Department, and I also direct the ARC Native American Resource Center. Once again, I am proud to stand here to introduce the ARC Indigenous Land Statement. As you walk around the campus today, I invite you into a specific awareness of the land and the history of the people of this land. ARC sits on land where Indigenous people lived since time immemorial and where citizens of tribal nations continue to live, work, and study. And at a finer level, I also invite you to think about your classrooms this term. What is the daily experience of Native American people in Davies Hall, the LRC, the science area, tech ed, and on and on? What images and examples are used in all of our classrooms and textbooks? What is missing from our interactions that would empower and support Native students? And I also ask you this: what would we each need to do to be able to create an environment where Native people could thrive at American River College? These are just some of the questions that spring from a committed application of the land statement process, and we deeply appreciate the support and commitment of ARC's administration in this. Land statements become a dynamic platform for the development of authentic relationships with the human beings who make up Native nations. At this moment, it is my pleasure to introduce a representative of one such nation. Jason Camp serves as the Tribal Treasurer of the United Auburn Indian Community Tribal Council, a position he has held since January 2016. Camp is also a member of the UAIC Development Corporation Board and the tribe's Compact Investment Group. He also serves on the board of directors of Thunder Valley Casino Resort, one of the largest and most successful casinos in the nation. Camp served as chairman of the UAIC Preservation Committee from January 2014 to January 2016. Before becoming a member of the Preservation Committee, Camp worked as a slot ambassador, slot technician, slot supervisor, shift manager, and valet at Thunder Valley Casino Resort. Camp previously served as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the United Auburn Indian Community. He's been successful in promoting and protecting the tribe's community presence, history, and cultural resources throughout California. Jason Camp works to protect tribal assets and develop programs, business opportunities, and policies that benefit all tribal members. He is dedicated to listening to the voices of tribal members while working to support elders and preserving cultural integrity. Please help me welcome Jason Camp.
And I still wouldn't want to be a teacher. It seems like a harder job than anything I've done yet. Good morning. My name is Jason Camp. I'm the treasurer for the United Auburn Indian Community. My tribe descends from this area. We're the Nisenan people. Up here nearest the river is the village Sukumni, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you guys remember that. My people were recognized by the federal government and had a reservation in Auburn. And before being terminated in 1967, we never gave up fighting. We got our federal recognition back in 1994 with the Congress's Indian Restoration Act. So it is very important to us that the school understands to teach our history, but also acknowledge that we're still here. Next, I'm going to read the American River College Indigenous Land Statement, which is going to do exactly that. So the American River College Indigenous Land Statement. We acknowledge the land which we occupy today as the traditional home of the Maidu and Miwok tribal nations. Those sovereign people have been the caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Despite centuries of genocide and occupation, the Maidu and Miwok continue as vibrant and resilient tribes and bands, both federally recognized and unrecognized. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the generations that have gone before, as well as the present day Maidu and Miwok people, and I just want to let you know how much we really appreciate that being being native here and growing up in this area and knowing the struggle that we've had. I really appreciate you guys, and I really hope you guys continue to do this good thing that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you all for your kind attention.
One change this fall is we have invited the president of the Student Senate, Aisha Abdul-Jabbar, to share some comments along with the president of the Academic Senate, Elisa Shub, and the president of the Classified Senate, Olga Presbaloff. I'd like to invite all three to please come to the stage now.
Sorry, if I forget a word, please don't mind me. I'm so nervous. Hello, everyone, and good morning. My name is Aisha Abdul-Jabbar, and I'm the new Student Senate President. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I have been very blessed, and I have met incredible professors and staff that made a great impact on my life. They also gave me the strength and support to be proud of who I am, to be proud of my identity. So for today, I thought I would like to teach a lesson today because I thought this was my opportunity. In a few days, I'll be sitting in class and watching the clock tick. But don't get me wrong, I totally love studying and learning. So if you're ready, in 1, 2, 3. Hello, class. If I could ask you to put your phones away. If you're recording, it's okay. Go for it. And remove any distractions, because, Snapchat can't wait. And if I could ask you to take out a piece of paper and a pen. Pencils are fine. I won't minus any points or anything. If you guys are ready, because you'll be taking some very important notes. Today's lesson will be, we students need you. As professors and staff, you have a great and huge impact on our student. An impact that could lead them to great path and allow them to great opportunities. For example, me, I have met incredible professors and staff that told me, yes, I could do it. First, I want you to tell your student, to tell them to come join the student body government, to participate. It's a life-changing experience. And we have many spots available. Second, please inform them about the events that happen on campus, like club days, and the 3 weeks of college. The Student for Leadership and Development will be hosting many activities for students. Please let them know. Also tell them that there is many fun clubs on campus in many areas of their interest. They could even create their own club. Studies say students who are engaged in student activities are more likely to do well than those who are not. That's an extra credit for you too, And class, please don't come at the end of the semester and ask me to round your 49% to a 90%. Totally not happening. And last and for all, you do have homework, which is 99% of your grade. And that homework is, please come to our meeting. Come to one of ASB meeting or CAPE meeting. ASB meets every Friday from 10:30 to 12:30. 10:30 to 12. And CAPE meets every Tuesday from 10:30 to 12. Also invite your student, give them extra credit. They'll totally do it. If you need more information, you could totally visit Canvas. It'll have more information over there. And class, you're dismissed, but please don't leave your seat.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I can follow that. You did great. On behalf of the classified staff here at American River College, I'd like to welcome you back to this fall. It's been a long summer. Right? I'd like to thank all the classified members who have been working really hard this summer to prepare the campus for you and for the students. like to talk about the things that we do well here, right? We always celebrate something. There's so much to celebrate here at ARC. And it makes me think, why are we so successful? What is it about us that so many programs are doing so well, so many students are transferring and graduating and reaching their goals? And what is it about us that makes them successful? The Classified Senate about 2 years ago was a 7-person Senate, and today we are a 20-person Senate. This year, again, we bring you back some awards from the California Community College Classified Senate. We're bringing back the first place for the website award. And we also showed at the Classified Leadership Institute the biggest community college spirit in the state, and we brought back the Spirit Stick. We do have pictures, so come visit us, we'll show you. When I think about our greatness, and I think about what is it about each of you that makes us amazing, there's one example that I think of. We all have heard the volleyball team made state last year, right? They won the state title for the first time in ARC history. And it feels like we've been talking about it a lot, but what I want to focus on is why we got there. Yes, there was a really talented group of young women, but there was also a coach. And that coach is also a very young woman. She started here in 2016, and she's energetic, she's amazing. Her name's Carson. I don't know, I think she's out here somewhere. I can't see that far. There she is, okay. So I stop by the practices once in a while, and I talk to the girls a lot, to the players, and I ask them, what is it about Carson that you guys just always have her back? And I don't think they can quite put it into words, and I don't know if I can put it into words enough to do it justice, but she puts her whole heart and soul into those young women and into the sport. And anything she does, they mirror her. Sometimes I feel like if she just happened to not show up to practice, they would still be going 100% just because they have that trust in her, and they would have her back night and day. So all of her hard work, all of her heart and her talent, it all kind of came together when during the state game, the ladies won. Right? And I think that a lot of us here are just like Carson. We put all of our heart and soul into our classrooms, into our offices, into every interaction with the student. And I just want to encourage us to continue to do that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elisa Sheb, and I have the honor of serving as the Academic Senate President. Some of you will have recognized me from being up here for the last couple of convocations talking about such super sexy topics as governance redesign, integrated planning, and of course program review and its companion piece, annual unit plan. Woo! Don't worry, I'm not going to get into the weeds on any of these exciting topics, but I do want to circle back to the idea of governance. You know, when I started here at American River College, it was back in 1989. I was very young, fresh-faced, right out of graduate school, and I had landed my dream job. I was an adjunct professor teaching speech to college students. It was amazing. I love teaching. And I didn't care anything about governance. I didn't have to, because my entire world at American River College was in the classroom. One classroom, specifically in Davies Hall, very small classroom. And it wasn't until I actually wanted to do something special for students that I cared at all about governance. I was not even aware that we had a curriculum committee. But I was taking a professional development course, and it was on diversity in the classroom. And I became so excited about the material, I really wanted to share it with my students. And what I envisioned was an intercultural communication class that we did not currently teach. Now, if you want to get a new course that meets the Area E multicultural education requirement for general education, you better learn something about curriculum. So I did. And it wasn't actually until quite a bit later that I learned that curriculum is actually one of the 10+1 items of academic and professional matters that are the purview of the Academic Senate, and that the Curriculum Committee is a committee of the Academic Senate. Wow. But I participated in governance along my path here in committees and task forces, and now it's project teams and councils. My experiences were mostly good, some not so good, what we would call growth areas, right? Growth areas are really important. But the common thread throughout all of those experiences was the opportunity to work with colleagues. I was able to work with faculty across all the different disciplines, and I was able to work with classified colleagues and student leaders, right, and our administrative management leaders. And it was through working together that those connections were made, which actually increased my world from that one classroom in Davies Hall to a space as large as this, and throughout the college, and truly beyond. So, back when we formulated our strategic plan, with the student experience as our focus and equity at the center of everything we did, I started to understand that governance, edited and redesigned, that governance was really the way forward for us to accomplish what we want to do together. So for me, governance has always been about getting something we want done, but participation in governance has been about the people, about the connections that we make. Today, we are more people than ever before. More voices, more perspectives, and it's wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Really. It's in this spirit of more voices and inclusions that faculty, I ask you to please accept your invitation to the newly formed Academic Senate Canvas site. You may have wondered what that invitation was. I won't give you all the details of what's on this Canvas site because you have to go on it to find out about it. Actually, anyone can see it. But please accept your invitation because this new Canvas site is designed to help increase participation and communication throughout our governance. And what I really want to say today is that when we move forward together is when we are the strongest. So thank you for being together here at Convocation, and let's have an awesome fall 2019.
All right. So it's really nice wow, we are full today. This is wonderful. So welcome to the kickoff of the fall term. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Thomas Green. I serve as the college president. And as Tanya had mentioned, we have changed things around a little bit this fall. So with that, and also in addition to some district-wide safety training that's going to happen this morning, we don't have much time. And so I unfortunately have to share with all of you that I'm not going to be able to provide you with my 45-minute PowerPoint presentation this fall. I know. The Vice President of Instruction starts clapping. Very telling. However, there is so much amazing work being done, accomplishments of our faculty and staff, and so many changes happening at the college. We did want to capture some of those. So we made an attempt to do it in just about 3 minutes. However, we're only going to scratch the surface. We're not going to capture all the amazing things and all the changes that are taking place. So I hope what we did capture, you have some value in. So here we go. So if you didn't know in that last picture, that was me. I was finally able to make a significant contribution to the college through the amazing amount of donations to the Women in STEM Club on Pi Day, where they threw pies. And the participation on part of the administrators was incredible. I didn't know that they wanted to support the Women in STEM Clubs as much as they did. Anyway, this just gives you a sample of just so many other things that we're able to really share with you. And so we are going to make a concerted effort to share with you and keep you updated throughout this, the coming months and this year. But I want to say, hold on. There was music going on up here. I was getting distracted. But what we want to do is share with you, let you know that we're going to be trying to communicate the changes at the college and share with you information, but to reach out and ask us questions, to reach out to your supervisor, your dean, or to send me an email. If there's things that you need to know about, if there's questions that you have, we're really trying to make an effort this term as well. So please take us up on that offer. So my main role today, just a second. Everyone thought there was some kind of joke about to happen. It's not. That was it. So, oh my gosh, yeah, now I can get my thinking back. So anyway, so my main purpose is really to introduce our keynote speaker this morning. And I wanted to do that just providing some information so that I think will help provide some context for our conversation this morning. So as many of you know, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we came together as a community and we created a shared vision for our institution. And at the heart of that vision was to ensure the success of all of our students. And you see that up here on the screen, or to transform the future of all students in our community through inclusive, equitable education. Right? And there's a recognition in that, is that American River College, not unlike higher education in general, has not adequately supported or served our marginalized student populations. So that recognition is embedded within that vision. In addition to that, we could extend that same, so the inequities that exist in our students' educational outcomes, we also see that in terms of the opportunities and the experiences of our employees as well. And so at the same time that we created our shared vision, we also, for the first time in the college's history, made an explicit commitment to social justice and equity, recognizing that without significantly improving and creating a more inclusive and equitable environment, we wouldn't be able to fully realize the vision that we've created. And that's really brings us to where we are today. And that there has been and continues to be an amazing amount of good work being done to fulfill our commitment. However, where we are now is we realize in order to truly make good on the commitment to social justice and equity is going to require a deeper, broader, and sustained college-wide effort. And that's really where the institutional equity plan comes into play, because it provides an opportunity, right, and a vehicle or a way for us to move forward and make good on that commitment. And I want to stop right here. There was an amazing group of people who came together and worked tirelessly last year to develop this institutional equity plan. And would you please stand so we can acknowledge your effort? Please, everyone. Is an amazing amount of work. And so I want to talk I just want to provide just a little bit of information about the purpose of the plan and some of the components of it. And so the plan, like I said, is designed to help us. It's designed to help us kind of by providing a framework or a lens through which we approach all of our work in a more inclusive and equitable way. So the plan is not intended to be some type of prescription for equity or some type of panacea, but really provide direction and guidance to what ultimately is a developmental process for all of us, both personally, professionally, and from an institutional perspective. So the plan is certainly, it's not going to address all of the systemic inequities or injustice. The plan's rooted in a perspective of doing better, of progress, of growth, of improvement. But what it will do, and what it's going to help us do, is really identify and support us in pushing back against those inequities in that personal, professional, and institutional space. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's a few components also I wanted to provide, some key components. So for the first time, what the equity plan does, it develops and introduces a common set of terms. Up to this point, we haven't had, there's many terms for equity, for example, but the institution came together and decided a term to really provide a common frame of reference for our dialogue, for the work that we're going to do both individually and collectively. So you'll see those in the plan: equity, social justice, liberation, other definitions as well, and that's going to be very helpful for us. The other thing that the plan provides is really what we're calling the ARC Equity Framework. And I mentioned, and the framework really exists to help us operationalize equity. So it provides like a scaffolding for how we can learn about ourselves and develop and gather information and knowledge that we're going to need to become more proficient equity practitioners, regardless of where we are and what role we have at the college. And the last thing that the plan helps us do is it provides some recommendations, so some guidance and direction with priorities about where are we going to invest both our individual and collective effort to make good on our commitment that we've made to social justice and equity. And if you go through the plan, some of the recommendations we've been working on for quite a while and making progress. Others we've just begun. So many of you may have saw an email last week about a new position at the college, the Dean of Equity and Inclusion. How many of you saw that? Oh, you're reading your email. That's wonderful. All right. So that position is really going to provide leadership to the development of a new office at the college called the Office of Equity and Inclusion, which is a recommendation in the plan, which is going to help us build capacity and provide support for our individual and collective efforts. I should say, because of some of the emails that we received, this is a different position than the Dean of Equity and Educational Pathways. So Joshua received a number of emails after that came out saying, "What happened to your job?" So everything's fine, but he asked me to clarify, so which I would. And we're going to need many more positions that are focused on equity. This just happens to be the second one at the college. So there's other recommendations as well. And so with that, just gives you a little bit of information. There's information in your program as well that kind of unpacks that framework a little bit more. I encourage you to read the plan. It's certainly on our website, and we're going to be using that to provide and to guide us as we move forward. But I think the last thing I want to say about the plan, it's just a plan. What's really important is our individual and collective effort that the plan is really there to support. And I'll tell you, a lot of the work where we're moving as an institution, that work is not going to be easy and it's not going to be comfortable. But where we're headed is that we're going to have an opportunity to learn how to become more comfortable with discomfort. And with that, I am so pleased to introduce our keynote speaker who is going to help us continue our work moving forward in building that foundation, Dr. Luke Wood. So you know you weren't going to get away without me saying a few things. Dr. Wood is the Associate Vice President of Faculty Diversity and Inclusion and Distinguished Professor of Education at San Diego State University. He also serves as the co-director of the Community College Equity Assessment Lab, a national research and practice center that partners with community colleges to support their capacity in advancing outcomes for underserved students of color. Dr. Wood's research focuses on factors affecting the success of boys and men of color in education with a specific focus on community colleges. In particular, his research examines contributors to positive outcomes. His research also has been featured by the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans, the New York Times, Chronicle of Higher Education, the Huffington Post, Fortune Magazine, Los Angeles Times, Miami Herald, San Francisco Chronicle, C-SPAN, and the National Press Club. Yep, he has authored over 120 publications, including more than 60 peer-reviewed journal articles. He has also authored and edited 14 books, his most recent including Supporting Men of Color in Community Colleges and Teaching Men of Color in Community Colleges. He has received his PhD in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies and a master's degree in Curriculum Instruction from Arizona State University, and he holds a master's degree and a bachelor's degree from Sac State. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Luke Wood.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Very good to be here. I'm I'm pleased to be able to come and talk about how we can take this plan and advance it beyond a great document. But first, I just want to thank the college for the invitation. It's good to be home. I don't know, for many of you who know me, you'd know that I claim Sacramento as my home. I have yes, absolutely. My mother, 2 brothers, including my identical twin brother, and 2 sisters live here. So I am, again, I view this as home, and I also am glad that this event opened up with a land acknowledgement for the Nisenan, Miwok, and Maidu peoples. I think that's absolutely important to recognize that we are on stolen land, anywhere we are in this country. And so I think I'm glad to see that, because there are many institutions that I go to that have land acknowledgement, but then they actually don't do anything with it. So I think that's important, that goes beyond symbolism. As this is getting set up, there's one thing I want to say, and that's that if any of you have had opportunity, first of all, anyone here heard me speak before? If so, raise your hand. Okay, cool. So you'd know that I've lost some weight. And I'm trying to lose more. And when I went to go and make the decision, like, oh hey, I'm getting a little bit older. I probably need to put this in gear if I'm really going to try to get in better shape. And it also helps when your twin brother is like a physique that is just amazing, and you're like, gosh, it's like we totally look like a before and after picture. So when I went to the gym, I ended up getting a trainer, and the trainer sat me down and said, okay, well, actually he didn't set me down, we stood up, and went through all the things that I need to do, not just in terms of a workout plan, but also in terms of a dietary plan. Like, okay, so this is what you need to do. And I said, he said, well, what's the main goal that you have? I said, I want to have abs. And he's like, okay. He says, well, you don't do that here, you do that in the kitchen. And I was like, okay, I see you. I'm going to step up my game. And so he put this amazing plan together for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put this into place. And so far, halfway good, not as good as it could be. I have to say that in looking at your institutional equity plan, is one of the best plans that I've ever seen. But it's all in the implementation. You have a great plan that addresses the moral, spiritual, and educational health of this institution. But with that plan, if there isn't implementation, then it's just words. It's so good that I actually sent it to my own campus and said, y'all need to see this. This is an example of where we need to be going as an institution. But again, it's all in the implementation. Okay, so now that we got the PowerPoint up, and I'm not just talking for the sake of talking, this is my contact information if you would like it. My name, as you can see, is Luke Wood. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm coming to you from San Diego State University, where we reside on Kumeyaay land. And I'm pleased again to be able to talk with you about the work that we do, both in terms of my work as a scholar, which is focused on community colleges. I spend more time on community colleges than I have on my own campus throughout my academic career. And in fact, I began my career in this district at Sacramento City College doing outreach and advising with some of you may know Tony Newman. So, and actually this is great, but that's not the right one. Here it is. Oh, it's not. All right, so how do we make this one show? Because this is the actual one right here. Oh, there we go, I got it. Thank you. So here's the title of today's presentation: Equity, Social Justice, and Liberation, Advancing Equity in a Climate of Resistance. And I say resistance because that is what we are experiencing across our country. Yesterday, I woke up in my job at San Diego State, where I serve as Chief Diversity Officer and Associate Vice President for Diversity and Innovation, slight change in title recently. And our campus had been flyered by a neo-Nazi group that had decided to try to disrupt the beginning of our academic year, our convocation, by flyering the entire campus with messages of hate. It's not the first time that this has occurred. It's not the last time that it will occur. In fact, it's become a more regular occurrence. That we are in a climate of resistance, both nationally, in terms of the political dialogue and vitriol that takes place, as well as here in our state. There are people who, when they see the beauty of that's the diversity in this room, don't believe that's important. When they see the beauty of the diversity that is our students, they don't see that that is important. In fact, for some people, not only do they not see it as important, but they see it as a threat to their very existence. But in education, we have the opportunity to be the change. In many ways, we are the tip of the spear, providing access and opportunities for society's most downtrodden. It is a responsibility, both a moral one and a professional one, that we all take on the minute we step into our roles as educators. And when I say educators, I should say that I view that as very broadly defined. Any person who works at this institution is an educator. The president, the faculty, the administration, the staff, and especially the staff that are oftentimes overlooked and rendered invisible, particularly our custodians, our food service workers, our groundskeepers. All of us are educators. And in fact, in the research that we do, we oftentimes find that those three groups that I just mentioned, custodians, food service workers, and groundskeepers, are the individuals who have some of the strongest relationships with our students and provide some of the best mentoring that they receive. And sometimes those of us who are formally tasked with doing those roles don't bring the same level of commitment. But again, there's a great document that's out there that says what this institution can be. It's about putting it into practice and recognizing that, again, all of us are part of this system. So I wrote an op-ed this couple of weeks ago now that appeared in Diverse Issues in Higher Education. I'd love for you to go check it out. It's called The Three Groups That Are Oftentimes Left Out of Conversations on Campus Climate. And again, our custodians, our food service workers, our groundskeepers. Because when you wake up in the morning, like I did yesterday, and see vitriol spread across campus, those are oftentimes the first people who see those messages. Those are oftentimes the first people who are responsible for reporting it, for cleaning them up. And it's an arduous task because oftentimes those messages directly target the communities that they come from because of the demographics of our institutions and systematic inequities. So, on a lighter note, getting to the rest of this here. So I'm from the Community College Equity Assessment Lab, and we do research, training, and assessment focus on helping to support community colleges. We have partnerships with over 150 community colleges from across the country that are focused on helping to support them in supporting our most minoritized student communities, our men of color, our students of color, our LGBTIQ plus community, our low-income students, our first-generation students, our women students, particularly those in STEM. All of the students are students with varying abilities, all of the individuals who are oftentimes rendered invisible at our institutions. And I also wanted to acknowledge that the work that we're doing at SDSU, even though, again, this is a community college conversation, what I have done is I've tried to take the lessons that we have learned from community colleges and apply it to the work that we're doing at San Diego State. Because the first thing that I realized in terms of stepping into my role is that the truth is that community colleges are light years beyond where most of our universities are at when it comes to these conversations. That's why, again, I sent your document to my campus so they could see what this really looks like. But again, it's all in the implementation. Here's some of the things that we're doing that I think are informative as you continue to carry out this work, which is to think about not having just an institutional plan, but how does each and every group in here, each academic department and administrative unit create a plan that helps to support that larger goal. And that's what we're doing at SDSU. Our Senate put into, and we have a university senate, students, faculty, and staff all in one room who help make the decisions about what guides the institution. And they said that, you know what, these plans are so important that now every unit needs to put together a plan that talks about how we're going to support this larger equity plan that we're creating. And if those plans aren't completed and approved by the end of fall 2020, any unit that doesn't have that in place won't be able to hire. Putting teeth behind these efforts. And I saw throughout your plan there was discussions on accountability. It takes that type of accountability, not only in the planning process, but in the implementation process to get this work done. So what we did then is we created a series of councils designed to help support building out these plans and the implementations of these plans. Looking at it from our divisional level, which is our division of academic affairs and student affairs and diversity, innovation, and graduate affairs, but then within each of the academic units as well, recognizing that there has to be someone, and not just one person, but people who are tasked with making this happen. We then decided that we needed to focus on building up a better climate for our institution, so we fostered and built out employee resource groups. Now, you'll go to many campuses that have a Black Faculty and Staff Association, or Native American Indigenous Faculty Association, or Pride Faculty and Staff Association. But what we decided to do is to recognize that oftentimes we have those efforts, they come and then they go, they come and then they go, they come and then they go. Why? Because one, people come and they go, and two, there's oftentimes not institutional support to make it happen. So we created a system of support where we help them schedule rooms, we provide them with resources and monies, recognizing that the most important intervention we have for campus climate is the people who are in the room. Another thing that we've done is we put together a team of faculty members whose research focuses on or teaching implicit bias and microaggressions. And they're tasked with going into every academic unit and doing training on these topics, on implicit bias, on microaggressions, on inclusive pedagogies, and understanding what it means to be a Hispanic serving institution, which we are. Because too often, many of our institutions do a great job of enrolling, but not in serving, and I think we all recognize that there's a major difference in that. We also recognize that, as I mentioned yesterday morning, we woke up to these flyers, but it's not the first incident that's happened on our campus. All last spring, we dealt with racial incidents again and again and again. The truth is, every institution deals with it. There's just a difference in response. Some institutions will wipe it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen. That's the common response. Our response is to say, this is what happened, and this is what we're going to do about it. Does it mean that we handle it perfectly every time? Nope. Because in this space, there's a lot of rooms for mistakes. And as you engage in this work of implementing your own plan, you're going to have to be willing to make mistakes, particularly at that personal level where you're going to have to be willing to go out of your cone of comfortability and go beyond your zone of proximal development and push yourself to go deeper and push harder for our most minoritized students. So we had a pledge for our African American students after our Black Resource Center was vandalized the second time in one semester. And what we did is we had over 1,500 faculty and staff who signed up saying, I'm going to donate monies to our BRC. I'm going to participate in training. I'm going to assign a book written by a Black author. I'm going to invite a guest speaker to my class who's from the Black community who can help serve as a visual role model to our students. I'm going to, and there was a listing of 20, 30 things that people could commit to doing. And now we're following up, making sure that people do it, because again, it's all about the implementation. Now, this campus is focused on advancing equity. That was what was just said. Your president just came up and said that this is something that's important to us. That was the definition from your institution that's behind me on the screen. Equity is focused on providing educational opportunities and support that meet the needs of the community. That's important, the needs of the community, not just the needs of ourselves, but the needs of our community, especially for those who are historically underserved, marginalized, and are disproportionately impacted. It means that we recognize that there are different people with different experiences, and we're going to meet our students where they're at, and we're going to recognize that everyone comes in at a group level and an individual level with different levels of need. And some people are going to need a little bit more than others. And that's a philosophy that some people have a hard time with. But if we want to actually change the outcomes that we see, we can't believe in the old lie that a rising tide lifts all boats. How many here have heard that phrase before? Rising tide lifts all boats. How many of us know that that is a lie? Because you know what? A rising tide does not lift all boats. For those who came to see me when I spoke at Sierra College, I said, a rising tide does not lift all boats because, and I showed, not just there, but I've shown this at numerous other institutions. If you look at your data and look at who actually benefits from a lot of the equity efforts over the past 5 years, it's not everybody. And in fact, it's oftentimes your majority students. And if you look at your real data, you recognize that, hey, we can employ interventions that raise our overall success rates, but don't raise it for the students who are from the most minoritized communities. And here's why. Because a rising tide does not lift all boats, because some boats have holes in them. Those are holes from systemic oppression and racism and xenophobia. Some boats aren't even in the water because they're not touched by the resources and people on this campus, because individuals and students walk by faculty members who may put their head down, pretend to get on their phone and walk the other direction. They may engage staff members who may make them feel like they are invisible. So we have great resources, but they don't touch the people who need it. And the truth is that some boats are simply on fire because of issues such as food insecurity and housing insecurity and transportation concerns. It doesn't lift all boats. And so in order for us to truly make change, we have to recognize that every boat is different. And that's a different way of thinking that I know this campus is embracing, but there's also a sense of uncomfortability that comes with that. Because then it sometimes feels like, is it not about me? Is it not about my people? But again, the focus here is on the needs of the community. And those needs are diverse, just as we are diverse in this room. Here's the challenge. When you go to many institutions, you find that they will look at their equity data and they'll see the outcomes that will show that certain students are doing better than others. And you'll find then, of course, that oftentimes your students of color in particular and other groups, such as our transgender students, will have outcomes that are lower than that of their peers. And they will say, what the heck is wrong with them? Why aren't they doing what it takes for them to be successful here? Anybody ever heard someone say that? Okay. Anybody admit to saying it themselves or thinking it themselves? I will. You know why? Because we've been trained as educators to perceive that that is what's going on. That if a student isn't doing well, it's because they don't care. It's because they're lazy. Or it's because they're only here for the financial aid. Those aren't my words. Those are words from our faculty interviews. And what we believe is that instead we have to have a different perspective, which says, what are we doing or not doing as an institution? And I know that you have heard this framing before, because I know that you've been working with Q. But you know what? Sometimes it's like any other message. You got to hear it again and again and again, because this is a different way of thinking than our minds have been trained. Now, I believe in a systems perspective, and I believe in the words of W. Edward Deming and Paul Batalden that every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. Every system. So when we see outcome disparities, we don't need to change the students. What do we need to change? What do we need to change? Okay, I'm from a community where we believe in call and response. All right. That was a little weak. All right. So what do we need to change? Okay. But changing the system doesn't mean that, oh, we're going to say what's going on with the district, the Los Rios district, the chance of Oh, did I hit the bottom? Is that what's going on? That was me. It's about bringing it down to the personal level. Every system, every college, every department, every classroom, every office, every person. Is everyone in here willing to be part of that system change? Is every single person here willing to? I'm not going to call in response to that. I think that was sufficiently adequate. So these are the definitions that I saw in your equity plan. First of all, you know you have a different type of equity plan when it starts out with talking about liberation. I believe in that. I believe in liberation. Liberation is the act of dismantling systems of oppression and disrupting systems of power and privilege. Social justice is a process and a goal. It's a way of seeing and acting aimed at resisting unfairness and inequity. We have to be personally committed to social justice and liberation. That's not some crazy talk. That's a real, true, personal, deep commitment that every single one of us has to engage if we want to change the outcomes that we see. Because if we look at our data and see all the outcome disparities that I was able to look at last night, we can't be comfortable. Yes, there's great work that's being done, but that work is not enough. So you've heard the words of Estela Ben-Simon talking about equity-mindedness. This is a pathway to this change. Recognizing that there are systemic inequities, recognizing that it's not the students, it's institutional underperformance, because every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets, and being part of critically reflecting upon our own role in that. Not thinking that equity is the responsibility of EOP&S, but equity is the responsibility of all of us. Now, there are a lot of different initiatives going on across the state. That's an understatement. There's just some of them that are listed here. These are certainly not comprehensive, and some of these are becoming older, and now newer ones are coming on board. But the truth is that all these initiatives do is reproduce unless we have equity at the center of it. Guided pathways can be guided tracking. That's the truth. Because if you haven't changed the people who are helping to determine the onboarding of students, then they're just going to be sending them to majors that they believe are appropriate for them. One of the colleges that I had an opportunity to engage, they had a session where afterwards we got to talk to faculty, we got to talk to staff, and then afterwards, myself and my colleague Frank were able to talk to a group of students. And in introducing us, and this was a group of Black and Latino males, one of the executives at the institution said, before I introduce them, I just want to say that and this is to a group of incoming students, that some of you might want to be doctors. Some of you might want to be lawyers. But have you ever thought about auto tech? Have you ever thought about being a chef? And then went on to talk about those programs, which, by the way, are great programs and great opportunities, so I'm not putting down those programs. And I thought to myself, well, maybe they're just trying to get students to expand their horizons. Think about all the different things and opportunities that are available to them. But then, not more than 30 seconds later, they said it again. Some of you might be saying to yourself, I want to be a doctor. Some of you might be saying to yourself, I want to be a lawyer. But have you ever thought about auto tech? Have you ever thought about being a chef? The second time it felt different. In a 5-minute introduction, they said that 3 times. By the end of it, the students who I had talked to at the very beginning, who one of them had told me they wanted to be an engineer, was looking at a different program because, oh my gosh, maybe that I'm missing out on something that I didn't realize. Why? Because someone who had a good heart and good intentions had a bad impact. Why? Because of bias. So this is your framework. The president showed this. Institutional equity, personal equity, and professional equity. We must change ourselves inward. We must change ourselves outward in terms of our practices, and we must change our institution. You know what the easier one to talk about is the institution. If we're not willing to engage that personal equity, then none of it ever goes anywhere. And in fact, that brings me to this point here. This is our pyramid of success. We use this pyramid to help describe what needs to take place to truly change outcomes and patterns for our most minoritized students. At the top of it, you can see student success. That's what we're all shooting for. And at the next stage below that is effective and engaging practices. And that's where we like to start. We like to talk about what we're doing professionally. We like to talk about the institution. But at the base of the pyramid, you can see our perceptions. That's that personal. And you can tell people practices. You can have a great plan that talks about all those practices, but if you don't change perceptions at personal level, then you actually arm people to do more damage than good. Here's an example of that. I was at a college with my colleague Frank, and we were doing a training. Actually, Frank was doing the training. I was just kind of there. And it was on college men and masculinities and how sometimes some of our men are apprehensive about seeking out help because they've been socialized to perceive help seeking as a sign of weakness and inferiority. And then afterwards, this was a flex day, faculty member went to a session on building relationships. And they heard someone say, you know what, the most important thing you can do is build relationships with students. You see a student outside the classroom, engage them. 2 great messages. So a faculty member, a really well-meaning, well-intended faculty member with what I believe to be a good heart, said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the change. I'm going to be the one to help right the ship. So they got out of this flex day, charged up. It was a great flex day. I mean, it was a lot of energy, super charged up, and they walked out and they said, you know, the first student I see, I'm going to engage them. Walked out of the training, happened to see a black male. Said, oh, there's one. Walked up to them, said, hi, my name is so-and-so. I teach here. I hear that you guys have problems asking for help. So what I'd like to do is to build a relationship with you. So, what sport do you play? Now, if you didn't get what was wrong there, come see me. We need to chat. A series of unintended microaggressions with someone who may have had a good intent, but was their impact good? No. Because if you haven't addressed that personal equity, the base of this pyramid, your perceptions, then you are armed to do more damage than good. You have to be aware of your biases, and we all have them. I do training. I've probably done over 500 trainings on implicit bias and or microaggressions. There have been times where in my training on microaggressions, I have microaggressed someone. By the way, that's embarrassing. Because we are all socialized in the same society to see some people as being more important, some people as less important, some people as smarter, some people as unintelligent, some people as criminals, some people as moral. We're all socialized in the same society, perceive things in that way. And unless we do that deep work of recognizing that we are in a social institution, which means we are more prone to communicating our bias, then we haven't done the right work. So, everyone here, who here has been to a training on implicit bias? Who here has been to 2 trainings on implicit bias? Who here has been to 3? Guess what? It's not like a one-time training helps anything. It is intensive and ongoing, personal, deep work. Everyone, since our student body president talked about, homework and things that you need to be doing. I have an assignment for you as well. By the way, that speech was amazing. Your assignment today is to go to Project Implicit and take the implicit association test. How many people here are taking that test? Some hands went up, a lot of them didn't. Project Implicit. Go there and take a test and just see where you're at with your own biases. And don't go there and do what most people do and take the one you think you're going to score the best on. There's like 14 different ones. I say start with the ones that you think you might not do as well on. It doesn't take very much time, but guess what? The information it provides you with is invaluable. This is what we find in our research. I'm a researcher, so I have to show a little bit of data here, even though this is a color-coded chart. Behind these are really awesome Z-scores. So basically, what this is a chart that depicts across our data set from California, looking at faculty members and looking at staff members. This one's first with staff. Where are the practices that we need to engage that are important for our most minoritized students? Building relationships, validating students, engaging them, disclosing information about our own personal selves so that we can essentially humanize the educational process, understanding of microaggressions, being equity-minded, welcoming students' engagement inside and outside of the office, all of these different important things. And guess what we see from our data? The two biggest concern areas are matriculation and academic services in terms of staff usage of these practices, which is interesting because I used to do outreach and advising, and I would know that a student is going to engage usually 7 to 10 people before they ever see a classroom. 7 to 10 people before they ever hit a classroom. And that's what matriculation looks like. I don't know if this college was in the sample, so let's just assume that's everybody else, right? And then academic services that students need to be successful. Two areas that we know are absolutely central, not most important, but absolutely central, and that's where the biggest concern is. But faculty, we're not going to let you off the line. This is what it looks like for faculty. And we've broken it down. You can actually see the Z-scores on this one. Full-time tenured track, non-tenured track, part-timers, and then part-timers teaching at multiple institutions, you start to see the red go up. And that's not because our part-timers who are freeway flyers aren't committed. It's because we have structural inequities that prevent them from engaging students because of the schedules that they're given, because of the offices or lack thereof that they're given. We have structural impediments to their success because we have not built out our system to support them. So when we look at this plan and we see all these things about faculty, if it's not touching and providing professional learning for our faculty who are on the margins, the ones who are our minoritized faculty, which are our part-timers, then we're missing the mark, because the truth is, the research shows these are the ones who are most likely to engage our most minoritized students. So we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. Now, how many people here have seen this before? Okay, a few hands, so I'm going to have you help me through it here. This is like, ta-da, like the big part of what I really wanted to show. This is a taxonomy of perspective of educators in terms of engaging this work. So think about the plan and think about the implementation and recognize that there are some people in this audience who have different perspectives about this, about their level of commitment to the work. And let me tell you where we came up with this. So this is a taxonomy that breaks educators out based upon how you would unveil professional learning. We got this because I oftentimes will show up to a training on microaggressions, and again, I'm there to deliver a training, room full of 30 people, and it's awesome. It's a brown bag, so the people who showed up are super excited. I walk in, and the person who's putting it on is sad. They have their head held down. They're looking to see if anybody else is going to walk in the door. And I'm like, hey, I see a decent-sized room full of people who are eager, and they say to me, yeah, but I was really hoping that there would be some other people here. And in particular, they're looking from Jerry from chemistry. Now, I hope there's no one here named Jerry from chemistry. I went to a campus, and Jerry from chemistry was sitting in the front, so it was awkward. They are looking at Jerry from chemistry because they know that Jerry microaggresses the heck out of his students. And everybody knows it, but is Jerry going to show up to a voluntary training on microaggressions? Why? Because Jerry doesn't care. because we think about these things without recognizing that there are different people with different motivations. Just like we have different students with different needs, we have different educators in this room with different needs. And we break them up into different groups based upon two different things: knowledge and action. Knowledge, knowing what to do, and action, having the willingness to do it. So, for those of you who have seen this before, we have our top right-hand box. Those who know what to do, K, and are willing to do it, W. What do we call them? The choir. So, for those of you who are part of the choir, it's good to see you. You know what to do, and you're willing to do it. You've been in the trenches working hard for our students. You believe in this work. If there's a voluntary training at lunchtime, in the evening, shoot, even on the weekend, you'll be there because you have an intrinsic commitment. But it's still beneficial to be there. Why? Because all of us have improvement to do. Then there's the allies. The allies are those who don't necessarily know what to do. They don't have the knowledge, but they are willing to engage if they're provided with that information. I would like to think that if you're not a part of the choir in this room, that you're part of the allies. That you're willing to learn, that you're going to engage in that learning, and you're going to implement it so that you can become part of the choir. And if we want to reach our allies, we have to be a bit more hands-on, because we have to recognize that, you know, this is a little bit outside the reach. It's a little bit uncomfortable, so there's a little bit more work that needs to be done. Then there are those who are resistors. And we break in our resistors into two groups: active resistors, and what's the other one? Passive resistors. These are individuals collectively who don't know what to do, and they're unwilling to do it. Now, let's talk about the active resistors, because they're the ones that first come to mind. They're the ones that when they hear that, and these are true stories, that Luke and or Frank is coming to talk, that they'll send out an email the night before and CC every single faculty member and staff member and administrator on campus, telling them don't go, that this is an example of reverse racism and reverse discrimination because we're talking about equity. True story, and that's an institution that is within this region. Then there was an institution I went to in the South where you didn't have a president like this. You had a president who didn't care. And you know what the president did? They found out that the dean of equity had invited myself and Frank to come and talk about serving men of color, thought that this was insulting that they would be having this conversation, and so they held a mandatory management meeting at the same time to prevent people from going. Or a college that was in Southern California somewhere in an affluent area, where we went to go talk about a partnership in collecting data for students, and the faculty senate chair refused to shake my hand. Looked at me, shook their head, and walked away because we were there to talk about equity. And in fact, that's one of the big things that I've learned in this work. Some of the most resistant people and resistant institutions are not in the South, they're in California. And you want to know why that is? Because we fooled ourselves into believing that we're better. You know what? When I looked through the report, it talked about the assessment of climate. It talked about microaggressions that are experienced by students. It talked about campus climate. It talked about policies that reify and extend inequities. We're not talking about Arkansas or Georgia. We're talking about here. We're no different. This is us. This is ARC. And if we want to change it, we have to be part of that change. Now, most of the people who are resistors are not active, they're passive. They just want to stay out of the fray. They heard a training on microaggressions, implicit bias. They're not going to raise a fuss about it. They're just going to vote with their lack of presence. They might say, hey, that sounds like a great training. Wish I could go. Oh, gosh, I have this deadline coming up. But, let me know how it is. But every single time there's a training on this topic, they seem to have a deadline. Why? Because there's passive resistance. Now, there's another group that we don't talk about as much, and that's the defiant. These are people who actually know what to do, but they choose not to do it. Now, you can become defiant in two primary ways. One, you can be a person who is part of the choir, who is part of making change, and guess what? There's this whole thing called racial battle fatigue and gender battle fatigue and other types of battle fatigue where you can do this work, and this work can eat at you when you see how people are treated, and you can become part of the problem by becoming so recalcitrant that you become part of those who are not serving to advance the goals. But that's not most people. Most people who are defiant are those who are active resistors, who are forced to go to that mandatory training because they did something that they shouldn't have done, and they sat through that training on microaggressions and implicit bias just like this. Information going in one ear and out the other, so they know, but they willingly choose not to do anything. Now, there's one group that we're missing, and that's an actual sizable group. We talked about the choir, we talked about the allies, we talked about the resistors, we talked about the defiant. But what about the people who think they know what to do and really don't? We call them the oblivious. By the way, I can't tell you how many times someone comes up afterwards and says, you know, I think I might be part of the oblivious. I say, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. So here's the oblivious. The oblivious are people who think they know what to do and really don't, and they have three different types of groups of those. First group are those who have a savior complex. They think that their job is to save those who can't do it on their own. They bring deficit mindsets to equity work. Let me say that again. They bring a deficit mindset to equity work. And yes, you can engage in equity work with a deficit mindset if you think that the students aren't able to do it without you. Your job is not to save, your job is to empower. The second group are those who are non-reflective. And here's the non-reflective people. They know when they introduce themselves that maybe they should use their pronouns to be more gender inclusive. Maybe instead of saying Latino or Latina, they'll say Latinx. They know to say the word equity as opposed to equality because they have different connotations. So they know what words to use, but their words and their actions are two different things. Kind of sounds like a lot of efforts around equity. You can have a great plan, but if you don't have the action around it, it's just words. The third group are those who are grandstanders, who want to do this for the public image. Because you know what? You can make a career now in equity, being the person who's out front making the charge in equity, and it looks good. But you know what? If it's all about you and not about them, then you're probably not doing it for the right reasons, and you're probably more of a problem than you are good. Now, here's the thing I want to push everyone on. Every single one of us is likely a member of the choir for some group. And the truth is, every single one of us may be a resistor for a different group. So don't just think about this in the context of race, right? Because maybe you see yourself as a choir when it comes to race. But then maybe when we're talking about our undocumented students or our transgender students or our students who struggle with food and housing insecurities, maybe you're a resistor. So it's not just about saying, hey, I'm part of the choir, I'm done, but recognizing that you need to look at every single group and think about where are you and recognize that you have work to do. And if your response is, I don't really know when it comes to that group, or you can't think of something that you have done that is a demonstrated commitment on a regular basis, then you're probably not part of the choir. So it's about a comprehensive perspective in order to be able to get this work done. Now, how do we address these groups? Our goal is to empower the choir, to educate the allies, to enlighten the oblivious with honest conversations, recognizing we have to convey humility and recognize that we all have more learning, growing, and developing to do. We need to encourage those passive resistors specifically to care. Because if they don't care, they're not going to employ the strategies and practices. But ultimately, really all we are doing is what Asa Hilliard talked about in his work. He said, I've never encountered any children who aren't geniuses. There's no mystery on how to teach them. The first thing you do is treat them like human beings. And the second thing you do is love them. And that's all we're really talking about. Social justice is love distributed. That's all it is. Making sure that we are demonstrating the type of love that we would want to see for ourselves, for our family, for our children, for those that we love, that we care about, to every single student that we engage on a daily basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to conclude here with just some things that I want you to think about that might derail this plan from being implemented. Here's the truth. There's a lot of things that derail equity. A culture of compliance, where we're worried so much about compliance that we forget that there's people on the end of it. A culture of complacency, where I teach my classes, I do things this way, my syllabus is set up this way, my office is set up this way, this is how I do my work. And you know what? If that's the perspective that it's in this way and this is how it is and I'm not going to change, then you're part of the problem. It's about engaging our deficit perspectives and realizing that every student here has the ability to be successful. And if you don't believe that, you're in the wrong profession. A lack of data transparency, where sometimes we don't want to disaggregate the data in meaningful ways because that might show that we're not. A culture of instability, where there are students who are experiencing challenges and we are not providing them with sufficient infrastructure to support their needs. Marginalizing these efforts, siloing these efforts. Again, equity is not EOP&S's responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility. So what are the barriers to equity? Policies. Policies are a barrier to equity because if we have policies that were made by the powerful to re-extend and reify their power. The policies were probably created long before many of you were here, and those are policies that were not designed to serve the students that are here today. The policies make things more comfortable for us, but oftentimes serve to disadvantage the students that we say that we care about. We have attitudes and dispositions that have to change. Again, if we haven't done the deep work of confronting our own perspectives, then we haven't really done equity. The politics and power dynamics. Gosh, for those of you in administration, you know it. No matter where you go, being in administration is difficult. And I say administration, I mean that broadly defined. We have politics, we have personalities, we have power dynamics that oftentimes prevent the real work from getting done because we're so caught up in who's going to get this, who's going to get that, how might it disadvantage my area, that when we start to think about just our area and not the college as a whole, then we're probably part of the problem. We have structures that are designed to produce inequities. Again, I said every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. You have a great equity plan. And you know what? That equity plan is so beautiful because it has verticality with your strategic plan. That's the first step. The second step is to merge those two documents into one. Because ultimately, if you have one document that says one thing and one document that says the other, even if they are aligned, when the equity monies go away, because oftentimes equity is funded on one-time monies and temporary monies. I know because my office is funded on one-time and temporary monies. When those efforts go away, what happens? Equity goes away as well. So it's thinking about how can we take those principles in the next strategic planning process that you'll have at some point and make sure that they are embedded deeply throughout. It's about recognizing that our built environment does not structure success for our students. These students who are in the most need of support oftentimes, again, have faculty members who don't have offices, and if they have offices, they're located on the bungalows of campus, or they're sharing those offices with multiple people, and it's not designed to support the success of our students. We have an institutional culture that has norms, that has rituals and values that oftentimes prioritize those who don't look like our students. And that's why when we say the rising tide lifts all boats and then find out that the equity efforts serve to benefit the students who typically look more like our faculty, that's why it happens, because unintentionally, those micro-level decisions that we make become macro-level inequities. And then we have to have the data practices to make it happen, data that really gets down and deep. So I want to just leave you with this. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I didn't say it, that's Peter Drucker. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. You have a beautiful strategy with your equity plan. You've seen that framework, the choir, the allies, the resistors, and the defiant. Well, we can think about that in terms of culture and strategy for an institution. I'm just going to go straight to it. You can be the people's college. You can be the conventional college. You can be the colonial college that's continuously extending colonization, or you can be the unintentional college, based upon whether you have a culture and strategy that is focused on equity. When I look at you, you fit into either the conventional college or the people's college. So which one will you be? Will you have, because you have the strategy, you have the document, are you going to be conventional and be among the litany of institutions that have great plans that sit on a shelf? Or are you going to be the campus that is enriched by equity and sees equity as an asset and serves the people? So if you're ready to be part of the People's College, I want to hear you make some noise for American River College.
ARC community, please join me in another round of applause to thank Dr. Work for bringing his liberatory work to us today. Dr. Wood. Dr. Wood's message will continue to guide our college as we change to provide students with what each and every one of them needs. My name is Jennifer LaFlamme. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a faculty member in the English department and the new director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, the CTL. I'm excited to be here to tell you about a spectrum of enriching professional development opportunities in the coming months. Dr. Luke Wood's keynote is the first of a collection of equity-based opportunities to learn, grow, and be inspired. We hope Dr. Wood has sparked in you a desire to implement equity in this college and that you leave today with a desire to learn more. To that end, I'm happy and excited to announce a new professional development opportunity focused on equity and social justice for all ARC employees. It is the ARC Professional Community-Wide Reading Program. We will together have the opportunity to read a common book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, Promoting Authentic Engagement and Rigor Among Culturally and Linguistically Diverse Students by Zaretta Hammond. Whatever your role at the college, whether you directly facilitate learning, support learning, or create and maintain our college's learning environment, this book provides a framework for all of us to think about how culture affects learning and our relationships with students. The program will include activities designed to build community around processing and applying the book's ideas. And these specific activities will then reflect the book's intent to help us create welcoming environments where students feel that their learning is meaningfully connected to their lives. Look for more information and opportunities to sign up for this program coming soon. Also this semester, the college will be offering several new professional development series designed to support all of us as we serve ARC students. First, Dr. Tiffany Mims, licensed clinical psychologist, will be here to offer a 2-part trauma-informed care series. These interactive trainings will cover the basics of trauma-informed care and focus on the practical application of using this approach to improve student success. Second, a 6-part series titled Redesigning the Student Experience takes place from September through November. Learn about new developments in what students are experiencing in transfer services, foster youth services, financial aid, Achieve at ARC, and more in order to better support student success in your role at the college. Third, with the view toward an increasingly diverse student population, we're also offering an exciting 2-part session on religious literacy and engaging diverse worldview identities in the classrooms and on campus. Later this year, the college will offer professional development on the topic of whiteness and race. Subtopics will include white racial literacy, the influence of racial privilege on institutional processes, and interpersonal dynamics, such as microaggressions, that perpetuate racialized inequalities. Finally, continuing learning opportunities include trainings and programming from Unite, the Pride Center, and the UndocuScholar Resource Connection, various PD institutes. They include Diversity in the Classroom, a Reaching and Learning Institute with a special focus on social justice and equity. The short application is on the CTL website, and sessions begin September 6th. The New Faculty Academy, the Equity Action Institute. The Spring 2020 Equity Action Institute will be the 4th and final cohort of this important 4-year project. Watch for applications next week. Finally, the ITC offers 3 ongoing institutes focused on online teaching: the Online Teaching Institute, Accessible Course Creation Academy, and the Fast Track Rubric Academy. I realize that's a lot to keep track of. You can find details about all of these programs now and in the coming weeks on the CTL and ITC websites off the Insider page. I strongly encourage you to participate in our community-wide reading program and to attend at least some of these institutes and workshops. Finally, I want to close by thanking you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your dedication to professional learning and personal growth. Thank you for your commitment to our students. Have a great semester.
And thank you, Jen. Thank you so much, and we are so fortunate to have such amazing work happening in the Center for Teaching and Learning. Not to bring up governance one more time, but another aspect of this year's going forward is that we have organized some project teams. For the first time, we will be having project teams looking specifically at disproportionately impacted students. We have a project team for our African American students, our Latinx populations, and our Native American populations. All of these teams will be working together and informing the work of a project team on professional development and training. The professional development training project team will be building on the work of the Equity Institutional Plan. So we have a lot of work going forward, and I'm confident that we can all pull together and do this thing that we really want to do. So with that, let's get out of here. I mean, take a little break and come back. Thank you.